I had a husband I adored, a home filled with light, and a career I was proud of. Nathan and I had been married for 6 years, and in that time, we built what I thought was a rock-solid foundation: respect, laughter, comfort, love. We weren't one of those couples glued to each other at parties or the type to post lovey-dovey photos online. But we knew each other deeply. Nathan knew that I hated orange juice with pulp and that I couldn't sleep without white noise. I knew he always chewed the inside of his cheek when he was nervous and that he sang Sinatra in the shower when he was happy. It was those small things that made me think, this is it. This is what it means to be chosen. For years, we didn't talk much about children. We had agreed early on, no rush. There was time. So we traveled, to Rome, to Kyoto, to old towns in Maine during autumn. We built careers, me in hospital administration, Nathan as a senior partner at a corporate law firm. And when we finally did start talking seriously about kids, I was 34. At first, it was sweet. Nathan would send me funny baby videos during work. He'd nudge me playfully when we passed a playground. "Your turn soon," he'd whisper. I wanted it too. I had this vision of a little girl with his curious eyes and my stubborn chin, running barefoot through our backyard. We tried. Month after month. Ovulation trackers, vitamins, clean eating, acupuncture, and hopeful prayers whispered into the dark. But nothing happened. The first time I saw the negative pregnancy test, I laughed it off. The 5th time, I cried in the bathroom alone. By the 12th time, Nathan had stopped asking. We went to the doctor. I thought maybe it was stress, maybe something minor. But test after test came back with news I wasn't prepared for. Then came the final blow. I sat in the cold office across from Dr. Marcus, who couldn't meet my eyes when she spoke. "Eliza, your blood work shows that your ovarian reserve is critically low. You're experiencing premature ovarian failure. I'm so sorry, but your chances of natural conception are extremely slim." I don't remember leaving the clinic. Just the rain, steady and cruel, and how I sat in my car for nearly an hour, paralyzed. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but I couldn't move. I didn't cry at first. Not until I got home, into the shower, where no one could hear me. I fell to my knees and sobbed under the hot water until my skin turned red. That night, Nathan sat beside me in silence. He rubbed slow circles on my back while I stared into the distance. "We'll figure something out," he said gently. "We always do." I nodded because I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that the man who had held my hand through every dark day would keep holding it. But over the next few weeks, I started to notice cracks. Nathan became quieter. He started staying at work later. He didn't laugh at my jokes anymore. And most painfully of all, he stopped touching me. No kisses on the forehead, no reaching for my hand in the car, no whispered "good night." I chalked it up to stress, to grief, to both of us needing time to process. I told myself that love was patient, that marriages go through phases. I didn't know then that I was already losing him. It started with little things. Nathan began working late, at least that's what he told me. A few nights a week turned into most nights. When he did come home, he'd head straight to the guest room, saying he needed a quiet space to work. I didn't want to nag, so I let it go. I told myself he was hurting too, in his own way. After all, he had wanted a child just as much as I did. Maybe more. But the distance grew. And the silence stretched into something suffocating. One night, I made his favorite dinner: creamy mushroom risotto, pan-seared salmon, garlic-roasted green beans. I even lit a candle, something we hadn't done in ages. When he walked through the door, his face looked exhausted, but I still smiled. "I made your favorite," I said, softly. He blinked at the table like he didn't recognize it. "Oh. I already ate." My smile faltered. "Oh. I thought maybe we could talk. It's been a while." Nathan sighed and dropped his briefcase. "Eliza, I'm really tired." He didn't even look me in the eyes as he walked past. That night, I sat alone at the table and ate dinner in silence. I stared at the empty chair across from me and wondered when exactly I had started eating alone in my own marriage. The following week, I suggested we see a counselor, someone to help us process the loss of fertility, the grief, the silence. He nodded distantly but never followed through. Days passed. Then weeks. And I stopped asking. I began to notice things that didn't make sense. There were calls he wouldn't answer in front of me. A faint scent of unfamiliar perfume on his coat one evening. A second phone charger in the glove compartment that wasn't mine. I wasn't a suspicious wife by nature, but something in my gut twisted every time I brushed these details aside. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was downtown picking up flowers for my friend Claire's birthday. As I crossed the cafe on 6th Avenue, I stopped in my tracks. Nathan was sitting at a table in the corner, smiling. Really smiling. He was with a woman. A young, elegant woman with soft brown hair and laughing eyes. She leaned in as she talked, her hand brushing his casually. He didn't move away. He looked alive. Like the Nathan I used to know. I didn't confront him. Not then. I stood frozen in place, my stomach knotted, my mouth dry. I turned away before he could see me and walked straight back to my car. My hands were trembling. My chest burned. That night, I said nothing. But I knew. The following morning, I found the courage to look through his desk drawer. I hated myself for doing it, but the need to know was louder than my shame. Inside, beneath a stack of old case files, was a receipt for a weekend trip to the coast. 2 people. 1 room. Dated just 2 weeks ago. I clutched the paper in my hands and felt everything crumble. When I finally confronted him, it was quiet. No shouting. No thrown objects. Just me, standing in the kitchen, holding the receipt with trembling fingers. You went to the coast, I said. Not for work. Nathan didn't even flinch. He looked down, jaw clenched. You went with her, I whispered. A beat of silence. Eliza. I didn't want it to be like this. I stared at him, stunned by the sheer calm in his voice. Like what, Nathan? You mean a betrayal? He finally looked me in the eyes. I didn't plan it. I didn't mean for it to happen. But, she wants a family. A real one. And I cut him off. So because I can't give you a baby, I don't count as family? He winced, but he didn't deny it. And that hurt more than anything. I wanted to scream. To break something. But instead, I turned away. And he said it. I think we should separate. Maybe even, talk about divorce. Just like that. As though 6 years of love, laughter, and shared dreams meant nothing. As though I was simply a defective piece he could discard and replace. I didn't cry the night Nathan asked for a divorce. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I simply walked upstairs, locked the bathroom door, turned on the faucet, and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger. Red eyes, pale lips, and a hollowness that went far beyond the surface. Somewhere inside me, something had shattered, and I didn't know how to put it back together. Nathan moved out a week later. No dramatic packing. No goodbyes. Just a few suitcases, his cologne missing from the dresser, and a deafening silence that echoed through the walls of our once shared home. He left me with the house. With the photo frames. With the dishes we picked out together on a rainy Sunday afternoon. He also left me with guilt. With shame. With the haunting question, was I ever enough? I kept functioning because I had to. I went to work. I answered emails. I smiled politely at coworkers. But inside, I was drowning. Every pregnant woman I passed on the street felt like a blade. Every baby commercial on TV made my throat tighten. Even the sound of children laughing in the park below my apartment made me close the windows. I wasn't just grieving the end of my marriage. I was grieving the family I would never have. The life I thought I was building. The version of me that no longer existed. Claire, my best friend, noticed the change. One evening she came over unannounced, bringing wine and Thai food. She wrapped me in a hug and said nothing for a long time. Just held me like I was glass. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she whispered. That night, I cried. Really cried. The kind of cry that shakes your ribs and leaves you breathless. Claire held my hand through all of it. The next morning, something in me stirred. I needed to reclaim myself, not the wife, not the woman who couldn't conceive, but Eliza. Me. So I started therapy. Dr. Hayes was in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes that saw right through me. During our sessions, I unpacked everything, my guilt, my grief, my anger. I told her how I used to imagine bedtime stories and first days of school. How I would have named my daughter Sophie. "You are allowed to mourn a future that will never happen," she said gently. "But you are also allowed to build a new one." It was the first time someone gave me permission to imagine a life beyond motherhood. A different kind of fulfillment. A different kind of love. But the past wasn't done with me yet. 2 months after Nathan left, I received a letter in the mail. It wasn't from him, it was from her. The woman. The one from the cafe. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, got the better of me. It was handwritten on delicate cream stationery. "Eliza. You don't know me, but I owe you the truth. I didn't know about you at first. Nathan told me you were separated. I believed him. But now I know everything. And I need you to know something too. He told me you never wanted children. That you were selfish. That you made him feel unloved. I found out the truth by accident. The medical report was still in his briefcase. I'm sorry. I never meant to be part of something so cruel. I'm not with him anymore. You deserved better. Lena." I sat frozen, reading the letter over and over. The lie burned more than the betrayal. He didn't just leave me. He rewrote the story. He painted me as the villain in his new beginning. And suddenly, I wasn't just grieving. I was furious. I sat with Lena's letter in my lap, hands shaking, a storm building inside me. Nathan hadn't just left me. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had rewritten me, turned me into some cold, selfish caricature to justify his affair. I reread her words again and again. He told me you never wanted children. That you were selfish. Was that really how he saw me? Or was it just easier than admitting the truth, that he couldn't handle a version of life that didn't go according to his plan? I had protected him for so long. Justified his distance. Excused his detachment. Blamed myself for the silence growing between us. But now? Now I was done being quiet. I didn't reach out to him. I didn't confront him. Instead, I began to unravel him. Piece by piece. I started small, calling a mutual friend who worked at his firm, just to catch up. I asked casually if Nathan had taken time off recently. She hesitated before replying. Yeah, he was out for a while. After his father died. Didn't he tell you? No. He hadn't. Nathan's father had passed away, and he hadn't said a word. Not even a text. That's when I started to question everything I thought I knew. About him. About our marriage. I went through old journals, photos, love letters from the early days. I was trying to find where it changed, where he changed. But it didn't feel sudden. It felt like a slow erosion, invisible until it was too late to stop the collapse. Then I stumbled on something I'd forgotten, an old shared Dropbox folder we used to store vacation pictures. It hadn't been touched in years. But as I clicked through, something caught my eye. A A scanned document. A draft of his will from 3 years ago. I opened it out of curiosity, not expecting much. But the contents made me go still. In the event of my passing, I leave the majority of my assets to my future child, and in the absence of one, to my wife, Eliza Hart. At first, it seemed standard. Thoughtful, even. But then I noticed the date. He had written this will after we started trying for children. After the first few failed tests. After we had already started seeing fertility specialists. Why was I listed only in the absence of a child? Why was his future child, who didn't even exist yet, the default? It was like I was never his family. Just a placeholder. I reached out to his mother, something I hadn't done in months. She was always formal with me, never cold, but never warm either. Still, I needed to know more. We met at a small coffee shop. She looked older, more tired than I remembered. He never told me you two were splitting, she said as we sat down. I nodded. There's a lot he doesn't say. She took a sip of her tea, eyes narrowing slightly. Nathan has always struggled with vulnerability. His father expected perfection. Legacy. Bloodlines. It damaged him, in ways even I couldn't fix. That was the first time I heard her speak with genuine emotion. When we married, I asked quietly, do you think he ever saw me? Or just, the idea of a perfect life? Her lips pressed together. After a moment, she said, I think he wanted to love you. And maybe, in some way, he did. But he loved the idea of control more. And when things didn't go his way, he turned cruel. It wasn't an apology. But it was the closest thing I'd get to the truth. I left that cafe knowing something with unshakable certainty. I had never failed Nathan. He had failed me. And now, I needed to reclaim what he'd taken, not just my name, not just my dignity, but my narrative. So I wrote. I started a blog. Anonymously, at first. A space where I poured out the truth, about infertility, about the shame society puts on women who can't have children, about love that turns conditional, and how that is the most brutal kind. The blog went viral. Women from all over wrote to me. Some had similar stories. Others had suffered in silence for years. One woman wrote, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." And slowly, the ache in my chest began to loosen. I was no longer just the woman who couldn't have children. I was no longer just the wife who was left. I was becoming someone new. But just as I began to stand again, Nathan returned. Not with flowers. Not with apologies. But with a lawyer. Nathan returned like a thunderstorm. It had been nearly 5 months since he walked out of our home. 5 months since he took the life we'd built and discarded it like it was nothing more than a failed contract. And now, he was back, but not to ask for forgiveness. He came with legal documents. The knock on my door that morning was firm, almost impatient. When I opened it, a man in a charcoal suit handed me a thick envelope. "You've been served," he said, his voice flat. My hands trembled as I took it. Inside was Nathan's official petition for divorce. And buried in the legal jargon was a detail that made my blood run cold. He was requesting that I leave the house. The house I had fought to maintain. The home we had built together. The one he left me in. His lawyer's argument? That he had bought the home in his name before the marriage and that I had no biological children to raise, therefore no legal grounds to claim emotional residency. I was stunned. For all the cruelty, all the coldness, I still didn't expect this level of callous calculation. But this time, I didn't crumble. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Adrienne who had once handled a high-profile divorce that made headlines. She read the documents with narrowed eyes, then looked up at me. "He's trying to erase you. Let's make sure he regrets it." What followed was a legal war. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition, for the sacrifices I had made, for the years I had loved him, for the grief he never stayed to share. And the law was on my side more than Nathan realized. Because while he may have bought the house before we were married, we'd used joint funds to renovate it, to furnish it, to turn it into our home. And more importantly, I had evidence, emails, texts, and even recordings of discussions about our plans to start a family. All showing that this marriage was built on shared dreams. The court proceedings stretched for weeks. Nathan was stone-faced through most of it, though once, when I took the stand and read an entry from my journal about the night we lost our final embryo, he flinched. Just slightly. His new girlfriend wasn't there. Maybe that stung more than it should have. But I reminded myself, I am not that woman anymore. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I kept the house. I received a fair settlement. But what mattered most to me wasn't the property or the money. It was what happened in the hallway afterward. Nathan stopped me as I walked toward the exit. For the first time in months, he looked at me, not with anger or arrogance, but confusion. "You've changed," he said softly. I tilted my head. "No. You just never really saw me." He opened his mouth to say something else, but I didn't wait. I walked away, head high, heels clicking against the marble floors like a drumbeat of liberation. Epilogue. It's been a year now. The blog I started grew into a full platform. I host monthly online discussions for women who've faced infertility, loss, abandonment. I've spoken at panels. I've been invited to write a book. But more than that, I've found peace. No, I don't have a child. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm building a life that's mine. Full of meaning. Full of truth. And love? Maybe someday. But this time, it will be with someone who doesn't see me as a vessel, or a stepping stone. Someone who sees me, fully. Until then, I am whole. Not because I was chosen. But because I chose myself.